So we see that Rav Yagen and many other extraordinary tzaddikim had similar experiences. And the very same Rav Yagen, I remember hearing in a lecture more than one time, bring this pasuk, bring this verse from the prophet Isaiah that is very much connected to our weekly parasha, Parashat Ki Tisa. He says, the prophet Isaiah says, in the name of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, Achershim shemau, והעברים הביטו לראות. מי עיוור כי עבדי, וחירש כמלאכי. אשלח מעיוור כי משולם, ועיוור כעבד אדוני. Prophet Isaiah chapter 42 verse 18 says, O deaf ones, listen. Blind ones, gaze to see. Who is blind but my servant, and deaf as my messenger whom I sent? Who is blind like the perfected man, blind like the servant of Hashem? So here Rabbi again says, I don't understand. I don't understand where it says, deaf ones, listen. If they're deaf, how can they listen? Blind ones, gaze to see. If they're blind, how can they see? If they're deaf, why are you saying see? How are you saying hear? It doesn't make any sense. HaKadosh Baruch Hu elaborates to us a message, a rebuke. You deaf one, you're not deaf because of a physical. You're deaf because of spiritual. You're deaf by choice. You heard the truth, but you chose otherwise. You saw the truth, but you chose otherwise. And who is he talking to? Is he talking to the secular people that drive on Shabbat? Is he talking to the idol worshippers that have joined the Christians? Is he talking to the atheists that do not even recognize who God is? Rabbi again says it's very clear that he's talking about his servants. He's talking about his messengers. He's talking about us frum people. He's talking about the religious Jews that are in the world, the ones that claim to be his servants, the ones that claim to be his messengers, the ones that claim to be the ones that follow what he says. And he says, you're blind because you choose to be blind. You're deaf because you choose to be deaf. But if I'm serving you, how could I be blind? If I'm serving you and I'm your messenger, how could I be deaf? You're deaf when you choose to be deaf. So long as what you hear in a Shiur Torah agrees with what you like, you listen. But the moment you hear that one of the heavenly decrees, one of the prohibitions, is relevant to one of your family members, friends, or even you yourself, immediately you cringe and you say, no, there must be a mistake. This rabbi doesn't know what he's talking about. He's just stringent. He's just stringent. This is not really relevant. Wait, but when it said, don't drive on Shabbat, you understood. When it said, don't eat pig, you understood. When it said, don't serve an idol, you understood. All those things you follow and you understood. So how come when it said that homosexuality is an abomination, all of a sudden you're saying, there's 613 commandments, so if he doesn't, follow one, then what's the big deal? He's got 612 left, like the Reshaim in the world say. How come when it said something that pertained to one of your kids, or one of your family members, or one of your friends, or somebody, all of a sudden, that one mitzvah, no, it's not relevant. Why didn't you see the truth? The verse that's in Torah, it says it. Why didn't you accept what you heard? Why? Because it didn't fit your predisposition. It didn't agree with you. As if HaKadosh Baruch Hu needs to agree with you. As if HaKadosh Baruch Hu had to ask permission from you. And many times, Jews are rebuked even more significantly from Shamayim, not for the things that they're aware of, and not for the things that they're not aware of, but rather for the things that they are aware of and simply choose to ignore. And we're not even talking about the Jews that are secular or the Jews that don't comply with anything, but rather the biggest rebuke, the biggest punishments we've seen throughout the years has been on the frum Jews, because HaKadosh Baruch Hu says, you already see, you already hear the truth, you've already accepted it. Why are you cutting corners all of a sudden? Why are you suddenly inviting Christian missionaries to your synagogue? Why are you suddenly trying to justify the evil? Why? You already accepted all of the big things. Why do you have to cut corners here? Why? I saw a shiur by Rav Soloveitchik, alav shalom. Mamash, if it was given today, if Rav Soloveitchik gave this shiur today in a modern Orthodox shul, they throw him out. They throw him out. Why? In his shiur, he says to the people that they're not zealous enough. They're not serving a Kadosh Baruch Hu enough. Of course, everybody has their tests, and he's talking to rabbis. Everybody's got their tests, and of course, everybody's appreciated for what they're doing. And I know that everybody's getting those calls from the local Christian minister or pastor trying to ask you if you can give a lecture in your synagogue. In essence, implying that, of course, you have to refuse the Christian missionary. Of course, you have to refuse him. But you keep getting those calls. But if he said this today at the Boca Raton synagogue, if he said this today at many other places, he'd get thrown out. Hey, Rabbi, how are you talking like this? Christians are our friends. You see, Rabotai Yekarim, sometimes we accept the truth so long as it agrees with us, and we accept the bulk of the truth. But it's that little bit that we reject is unfortunately the worst type. Is unfortunately what makes everything we do almost worthless. The Gemara in Masechet Shabbat says that HaKadosh Baruch Hu wanted to save the religious people, the people that were observing Shabbat, observing Mitzvot at the time of the Bet HaMikdash. He told the Malach HaMavet, you have permission to go and destroy all of the people that are serving idols that are going against me. Permission. But all the religious people, the rabbis, the frum people, all of those, don't touch them. They have a stamp on their head that they are of a taf, that they keep the entire Torah from Aleph Taf, from A to Z in Hebrew. Malach HaMavet comes to HaKadosh Baruch Hu and said, oh, hold on a second, HaKadosh Baruch Hu. You have 613 mitzvot, and one of those mitzvot is ocheach tocheach et amitecha. You must rebuke your fellow. When you see your fellow serving an idol, when you see your fellow desecrating Hashem's name, when you see your fellow driving on Shabbat, you have to say something, you have to do something, you have to not stay quiet. You have to do something. Can't just have this guy driving on Shabbat parking next to the shul for 15 years or even 5 years. Somebody has to say something, to the extent where you tell him, what is the punishment for such a thing? With the fact that his prayer is useless because he's desecrating HaKadosh Baruch Hu's name every time he turns on the ignition and driving on Shabbat, thinking that because he goes to shul on Shabbat, he's earning any merits. He's not earning anything. He's getting punished for every single second. Even more so because he goes to shul. Because you can't say he didn't know. And you are staying there quiet. You're quiet. Your silence is enabling him to continue, because he figures that all Jews care for each other. And if it was that important for me to observe Shabbat without driving, surely the rabbi would tell me. If it was that important, then surely one of the fellows that I say Shabbat Shalom to in the shul for the last few years would tell me not to drive on Shabbat. But no one told me, so he keeps driving. Rabotai Yekarim, that mitzvah vocheach tochiach et amitecha is 100% relevant to our lives today. And just like HaKadosh Baruch Hu tried to save the religious people, but when he was brought this case by the Malach HaMavet, he had no defense for it. He said, Malach HaMavet, not only are you right, but now that this is out there, it's known that they did not rebuke. Punish them first. What about the fact that HaKadosh Baruch Hu knew that even if you would have rebuked those evil people that were serving idols, They wouldn't have heard it anyway. They wouldn't have listened. They chose to be blind. They chose to be deaf. They liked being blind. They liked being deaf. Malach HaMavet says to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, you knew that. You knew they wouldn't listen, but the people didn't know, and therefore they're still obligated to fulfill the mitzvah of rebuking, and they didn't, which means they didn't not rebuke them because of it not working out. They didn't rebuke them because they simply didn't care. And that's sinat chinam. That's sinat chinam, Rabotai Ikarim. People say, oh, sinat chinam when you disagree. Absolutely wrong. Sinat chinam is not just because you disagree. Sinat chinam is when you see your fellow. When you see your fellow Jew sinning and you don't do anything, says Rav Yonatan Eibeshitz alav shalom. That's what sinat chinam is. And unfortunately, there are many of us that are there. We see. We're around. But sometimes we stay quiet. When your average Jew stays quiet, it's not good. But when your leaders are quiet, it's even worse. Because that's the top of the top. That's where it's expected from the most. And that's why the Gemara says in Masechet Shabbat that HaKadosh Baruch Hu punished those religious, those leaders, those religious people first. And unfortunately, there's similar things happen throughout the years in the first Bet HaMikdash, second Bet HaMikdash, and other times. Even in the Chumash, we see that when HaKadosh Baruch Hu heard Am Yisrael complaining, he punished the leaders. He killed the leaders. Why the leaders? If you are a leader and you don't rebuke your people, you acquire all of their sins. You are responsible for all of their sins for not rebuking. So each person is a leader to a certain extent, some more, some less. Some people are leaders of just themselves. Some people are leaders of their family. Some people are leaders of their class. Some people are leaders of their office. Some people are leaders of their Bet Knesset, even a community. Each and every single person has to fulfill this mitzvah of rebuking. And when we don't rebuke, it's significant damage is brought to the world. Much more so than when we make sins that we don't even realize they're sins because it's due to ignorance. Says the Torah in Parashat Ki Tisa, HaKadosh Baruch Hu is telling Moshe Rabbeinu to have a census. Chachamim say, why does HaKadosh Baruch Hu need to count Am Yisrael? Says this is one of the ways that HaKadosh Baruch Hu shows us that He loves us. Because when someone loves something, they like to count it. It's like when somebody likes his jewels. He likes to open them up again and see, oh, look, I have this ruby. Oh, and this diamond. Oh, and this. Oh, but you already know what you have. You have it on a computer. You have it in written on a piece of paper. You've already advertised it on the internet. You've advertised it to your friend. The whole world knows how much you have. Why do you have to keep looking at it? I like them. Oh, same thing with money. People that like their money, every 5 minutes, they look at their stock account. Every few minutes, in the middle of a shiur Torah sometimes, you'll see a guy looking at his portfolio on TD Ameritrade. What do you think happened in the last 15 minutes? Oh, maybe it went up, maybe it went down. What can you do about it anyway? It already went up or it already went down. What can you possibly do about it? He likes it. Somebody likes things, they like to look at it. Not to say that's the right thing to do. HaKadosh Baruch Hu is showing us that he shows us how he likes us, how he loves us. But when a person likes money, when a person likes his jewels a little too much, it's not a good thing. It's not a good thing. But nonetheless, there is a new insight. A new insight that we saw from this first couple of verses. It's relevant to what the prophet Isaiah says. כי תישא את ראש בני ישראל לפקודיהם, ונתנו איש כופר נפשו לאדוני בפקוד אותם, ולא יהיה בהם נגף בפקוד אותם. It says when you take, let's see, in the verse number 12, chapter 30, second verse of the parasha, Hashem says to Moshe, when you take a census of the children of Israel, according to their numbers, every man shall give Hashem an atonement, a kofil, for his soul when counting them, so that there will not be a plague among them when counting them. So here we see that the word kofil has multiple meanings. One of the meanings is that it's an atonement. Somebody has to give an atonement. You give a tzedakah, If you want to do tikkun abrit, you want to do tikkun chilul Shabbat, you want to do tikkun nida, you want to do tikkun of all types of sins. A person that wants to completely eliminate these sins from their records, first and foremost, they have to stop sinning. Second of all, they have to make a commitment not to sin again. Third, they have to regret the sin, cry to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, pray to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. And another thing that they can do, our sages teach us, Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai, the Arizal, the Baal Netanya, many Gdolim discuss the issues of tikkunim and say, after you've done those other critical steps, first you've stopped the sin, you've committed not to sin, and you've done everything else, and you want to still take out that last piece of smudge, recollection of that sin, you got to do a tikkun. What's tikkun? In the past, there used to be fasts. Person wasted seed. One time, he'd have to fast 84 times. 84 times, Hashem Yishmo. Today, person can barely fast for Yom Kippur one time. So Chamim say, well, instead of fasting, do a tikkun. What's a tikkun? Replace that fast with money. However much money the average person, it costs them to eat per day, let's say, just call it, let's say, I don't know, $10, $10 or $5, let's say. $5 times 84, that's 420. That is a atonement, a tikkun, for a single time that a person wasted seed. If a person was with a nida, it's a different number of fasts. I believe it's 87 fasts. If it's a chilul Shabbat, if it's a with a goya, if it's a homosexuality, each one of these different tikkunim have a different number. And there's anyone that's interested in these numbers, the Arizal put it together according to the teachings of the Zohar, the Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai. This is on our website, tikkunabrit.live. T as in tikkun, IKKUNHABRIT.LIV. Tikkun abrit, so you could live. So you could read over there, even if you don't donate, you don't do any tikkunim, it's good to know these things. Why? Because a person needs to understand how much they're in debt for at the very minimum, even after they did tshuva. Now, of course, many people say, oh, this salat, I don't know, I was sinning for the first, 20 years of my life. I have to be a billionaire just to do these tikkunim. Take it easy. Take it easy. Hold on a second. No one's telling you have to do everything all in one day. All HaKadosh Baruch Hu is saying is, first of all, do the real tshuva. Stop the sin. Do all the other first few steps. If you've done all of those, you're doing all of those, you have a little bit of money, you have a job, you have a savings, you have something, do whatever you can. Do whatever you can. But what's the problem? The problem is that the person is really, that same word, kofil, that means atonement, also means kofil. Kofil is a heretic. Kofil is a heretic. That person, all of a sudden, says, no, I believe everything, it's all good, but listen, it can't be. It can't be if this is right. What? Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai made a mistake? The Arizal made a mistake? What, you think that we're making a living off of this? What's the mistake? No, I don't understand. I don't know. It's just too much. It's too this, too that. I don't know if I'll make it. I don't know if it's worth it. Don't do it. It's for you. Why does he have that? Because he's a little bit of a heretic. What happens? A person sometimes will think that HaKadosh Baruch Hu only gave him money so he could have a good time. He'd go buy a second burger. He'd go buy a second car. He'd go buy a $20,000 watch. He can go buy a third house that he doesn't need. He can go do all these other things. But to use that money for Torah, all of a sudden, I don't know if I have enough. I don't know if this. I don't know if that. Becomes a little bit of a heretic. Why? Heretic in a sense that either he doesn't think that Hashem is going to give him enough, or he simply doesn't believe that parts of the words of the sages or the Torah itself are real. All of a sudden he has doubts. All of a sudden he has this. Why? Because you're taking away his false god called money. So what does HaKadosh Baruch Hu say to us? It says to us, "V'natnu ish kofir nafsho laHashem," that each person will give this atonement to Hashem. And what I saw out of this is that if a person really wants to do tshuva, they have to give a kofil to Hashem, but not kofil that's always money. Kofil meaning the heretic inside us. The heretic inside us, each and every one of us has a little bit of heresy in us. A little bit sometimes. The less we learn, the more heresy we have. The more we watch the news, the more we watch shtuyot, the more we're addicted to sports and movies and all that other garbage, the more heresy we have in us. All of a sudden you have a question, this and that, and you don't really care enough about the answer. Why? Because when push comes to shove, and you have to make a big commitment, all of a sudden, oh yeah, but I don't know if it's this, and I don't know if it's that. Wait, why didn't you ask those questions when the shiur was on? The heretic comes out. So a person that wants to seriously do tshuva has to give HaKadosh Baruch Hu that heresy, meaning get rid of it. Get rid of that heresy. And sometimes that heresy begins and ends with an addiction to money. And therefore HaKadosh Baruch Hu says, Yitnu kol ha'oved et ha'pekudim machatzita shekel. That all of those people should give what? In order to get rid of this, to save themselves from the plague, to save themselves from corona, to save themselves from heresy in the world, to save themselves, they should give what? Machatzita shekel, money. Should give money. But don't think that HaKadosh Baruch Hu needs your money or needs anything from you. In fact, all HaKadosh Baruch Hu wants from everybody is whatever they can. What does it mean, whatever they can? Ashir lo yarbe ve'adal lo yam'it. A person that's wealthy, you don't need to give everything. And a person that's wealthy, doesn't have a lot, don't think that you're absolved from everything. Everybody gives whatever they can. Everybody gives whatever they can. For what? It's for you. It's lechaper al nafshotechem. This is to atone for your own lives. Your tzedakah money is for you. It's not for Hashem. Hashem doesn't need your money. Your money that you put in tikkunim is for you. It's not for Hashem. And what ends up happening is when a person realizes this, that the only reason they didn't donate at least maaser, at least 10% of their income, the only reason they didn't contribute, the only reason they didn't do all these other things is really because of a little bit of heresy. Heresy that comes from an addiction to money. Heresy when it comes from the jealousy in other people. Heresy that comes from where they doubt whether this is good or this is not. And really, what HaKadosh Baruch Hu is saying is you're forgetting that this is all for you. This is all for you. So the question I had, a couple of questions. First question I had is, it says that the ashir, the rich, don't give too much. And the poor, don't think that you're absolved, that doesn't give nothing. Who's poor? Who's poor? We know from countless places, in the Gemara, in the Midrash, in the Zohar, everywhere across the board, Am Yisrael was rich. They got money in several different ways. They got money from the Egyptians. They got money before they crossed the Yam Suf, because they found one of the treasures of Yosef HaTzadik. On top of that, they got more money after Yam Suf. The Sea of Reeds collapsed on the Egyptians, and HaKadosh Baruch Hu made the ocean spit out all of the gold and jewels that the Egyptians brought with them, which was all of the money of the country. And everybody was gathering the money to the point where the Midrash says that every Yid, every Jew, had 30 camels carrying the gold and jewels that they had. Every Jew. So who's poor here? Who's poor? You said the rich, okay, I understand the rich, but who's the poor one? Chachamim tell us, poor in his own eyes, due to jealousy. Poor didn't exist as far as poor like you see today, as Shem Achem. You see some people living in the streets or living in their cars because they can't afford to pay rent. No, nobody was begging for food. Food was coming from Shamayim. Everybody had more than what they needed. And in fact, each person had 30 camels or more full of gold and jewels. No poor. So who's the poor that we're talking about in this verse? He was poor in his own eyes because he was looking at his next door neighbor and he had 31 camels full of gold. I have only 30, he has 31. It's not enough. I don't know why Hashem is cursing me like this. I don't know why I'm being punished. I only have 30 camels. He's looking at his next door neighbor. He's got a mansion. He just got an extension to his kitchen that's bigger than his house. Yeah, but your house is 5,000 square feet. Yeah, but his kitchen is 5,000 square feet. Okay, his kitchen, but you have a big house anyway. What do you need more? I don't know. I don't know why Hashem is not blessing me anymore. What? Did you forget that? Did you forget the bonus that you got? Did you forget you forgot everything? Poor in his own eyes. That poverty in his own eyes comes from jealousy. The Gemara says a person that's jealous will not be resurrected with the dead. Even if he kept Shabbat, kept everything, will not have the merit to be resurrected with the dead. Why? Because jealousy, at the very least, is the dust of heresy. Because when you're jealous of another person, in essence, what you're telling Hashem is that what you gave him really belongs to me. You made a mistake, Hashem. That's really what it says. So HaKadosh Baruch Hu says, that atonement that you're giving, that money that you're giving, is in order to show me that you're not a kofil, to show me that you believe that HaKadosh Baruch Hu is the one that gives you the chayil, that he's the one that gives you the strength, he's the one that gives you the money. That you're not delusional enough to think that you made the money. You're not delusional enough to think that you're the one that is smart and that's why you have money. When you give for the sake of Torah, when you give, at the very least, what you're supposed to give, you're showing HaKadosh Baruch Hu you're not a heretic. But unfortunately, Rabotai, many times, people do not even realize the heretic that's inside them, because they figure that everybody else that they know is also acting the same way. So, does Hashem care? Let's see. We'll go on in the parasha. We're already in 40 minutes or so. But let's see if we can get some more parasha. Does Hashem care about this stuff? Let's see. Who is one of the biggest tzaddikim in the world? Not just during this time, but ever. Aaron HaKohen, Kohen Gadol. HaKadosh Baruch Hu says in chapter 30, verse number 19, ורחצו אהרון ובניו ממנו את ידיהם ואת רגליהם בבואם אל אוהל מועד ירחצו מים ולא ימותו או בגישתם אל המזבח לשרת להקטיר אישה לאדוני ורחצו ידיהם ורגליהם ולא ימותו והייתה להם חוק עולם לא ולזרעו ולדורותם. Kadosh Baruch Hu says that we have to have, Moshe has to put together this kiyor, this copper laver. Where? What is this for? This for Aaron and the Kohanim to wash their hands and their feet. From it, Aaron and his sons shall wash their hands together with their feet. It was a unique way of how they had to wash their hands and their feet at the same time. Whenever they come to the tent of meeting, whenever they come to the Mishkan, they shall wash it with water and not die. Whoa, hold on a second. You mean that if they don't wash their hands and their feet the right way or at all, Hashem is going to kill them? But this is the Gdol Ador. This is the biggest tzaddik in the world. What do you mean you're going to kill just because you just forgot to wash your hands? By the way, as a side note, the Ramban says that from here, we see where the original source is of Netilat Yadayim. Even though it was a takana of Shlomo HaMelech, the source that Shlomo HaMelech got it from is from here. That before you serve Hashem, before you start your day, all this stuff, there's a significance to washing your hands. There's Tumah and so on. But the point is here, we have multiple times that a person has to wash their hands. Most people know the basics. In the morning, you have to wash your hands, then do a blessing. Before you eat bread, you have to wash your hands and then do a blessing. It's a little bit different. In the morning, it's 1, 1, 1, 1, 1, 1. And some are in the morning are more stringent for different Kabbalistic reasons. They actually do 4 and 4. But before you do bread, it's 3 and 3, but it's 3 on one side, 3 on the other side. That's another time that a person has to wash their hands with a blessing. Those are 2 times you wash your hands with the blessings. Now you also have times to wash your hands without blessings. One time everybody knows, you relieve yourself, you have to wash your hands. You don't necessarily have to wash your hands with a natlan, but at the very least, for hygienic reasons, you have to wash your hands. It's an obligation for a Jew to wash their hands. It's good if you watch it with a natlan, but there's no obligation to do it if you are for the bathroom, and there's no blessing. Another time you have to wash your hands is if you touch your feet. You have to wash your hands. You touch something that's impure. You touch, some type of, a rodent, a lizard, something like that. You have to wash your hands. No blessing, but you have to wash your hands. Many times people, touch parts of their body that are usually covered, their armpits, the parts of their inner thighs. You have to wash your hands. You have to wash your hands. One of the things that a lot of people perhaps don't know is after a husband is intimate with his wife, before he goes back to his regular life, he has to wash his hands, netilah, but this time he actually has to do it with the natlan. He has to do it with a natlan. Wash his hands. Why? Because this is in essence a significant act that took place. Now you're going back to a different part of your life. There's a transition that needs to take place, and washing the hands is part of it. So the source of washing hands is here. But we didn't know it was that big of a deal to the point where if they didn't wash their hands, or they just did it the wrong way, they did just the hands or just the feet, we're talking about death penalty. That's a big deal. Maybe it's too much. Maybe Hashem really was just kidding. Chas v'shalom to say that, but just to embellish the point here, look what it says here. It says that they shall wash their hands with water and not die, or when they approach the altar to serve, to raise up in smoke a fire offering to Hashem, they shall wash their hands and feet and not die. Twice HaKadosh Baruch Hu tells them, even though it's Aaron HaKohen, even though it's Nadav and Avihu, even though it's Tzadikim, Kohanim, they're coming to serve HaKadosh Baruch Hu, don't think for a second that they have a different set of rules. Don't think for a second they have a different set of rules. They have to wash their hands or they're going to die. What are we trying to learn from here? I mean, none of us are going to serve in the Bet HaMikdash today. So what are we doing? It's to show that HaKadosh Baruch Hu, when he says something, it shows to us the level of seriousness in it. That for something that our logic, our rational logic, is against the Torah, really. Our natural, rational logic is more close to what the Yetzirah wants than what the Torah says. Unless a person learns a lot of Torah and literally rewires their logic to have Da'at Torah, the logical way is actually against the Torah, because we would think, okay, so he washed his hands, he didn't wash his hands, whatever, Hashem is not going to care about it. Just like he's not going to care about if a person gives the right amount of tzedakah, or he gives maaser, or he does tikkunim, or he goes and he keeps Shabbat, or before you know it, that's before he even believes in God. Here we see that something that the average person out there thinks is really not even significant enough to discuss. Death penalty. That's what the Torah says. That's what the Torah says. Look how HaKadosh Baruch Hu is strict with his own words. Strict with his own words. Now, of course, many people will say, yeah, but there is a lot of scandals out there where there is different organizations that say, now you do a tikkun metim. There's this new scam out there. It's called tikkun metim. It's tikkun for the dead. What do they tell you? Listen, if you sign up to give $180 a month for 3 years, whichever one of your family relatives you want, I don't know, your grandfather, your father, your cousin, whoever, that didn't keep Shabbat, that didn't keep mitzvot, we're going to take him out of Gehinom. Why? Because you're contributing $180 a month. This is 100% a scam. Anyone that donates money to such a thing is not only being scammed, but is not even going to get a single mitzvah for it. Because you're promoting heresy. There is no such thing as taking your uncle or your father or whoever out of Gehinom for a few $100s over a few years. If they didn't keep Shabbat, they didn't keep anything. Sure, it's good that somebody is giving tzedakah for somebody that died, even if that person didn't keep anything. It's helpful, but it's not going to take them out of Gehinom by itself. No. You have to do a whole lot. A whole lot to give them even a chance. And some Rishonim from 800 years ago say, somebody that dies on Mechalel Shabbat, there's nothing you can do for him. The only thing you can pray for is that Hashem gives him another chance, another Gilgul maybe. Has mercy enough from some type of merit that he had, that he's going to give him another chance. But in reality, to think that you could take somebody out of Gehinom for a couple $100 is 100% heresy. 100% heresy. Why? Because in essence, what are you saying? You're not even saying that this is a Hashem being nice. No. This is literally turning Judaism into Christianity. This is turning Judaism into Christianity. To say that you could just take a few dollars, or even a lot of money, even if it's $1 million. Okay, forget about the amount of money. Even if it's a lot of money, and you could just, a person can desecrate Hashem's name. He could go to church. He could drive on Shabbat. He could serve an idol. He could be immoral. He could steal from everybody. He could do every crime under the sun that his heart desired throughout his life. And he's going to die and go to Gehenom. But you, because you have a few dollars, you're going to take him out of Gehenom. That is 100% Christianity. Hence the reason of why Christianity, Catholicism, all that New Testament, False Testament garbage, that's why there's so many criminals among them. Because, according to them, you're absolved from all crimes because you believe in Yoshke. And if you're Catholic, you have a few other things you could add to it. A few this, a few Marys, a few angels, a few idols, a few this one, a few that one. And as long as you keep donating money to the idol-worshipping church, you're good to go. Make any sin you want. Kill people, do whatever you want. Yeah, but they speak against sin. Yeah, they speak against sin, and everybody leaves the church sinning just like they sinned beforehand. Why? Because they feel good about it, because they just gave the priest a few $100,000, so they figured that, okay, this bought me at least another couple of months worth of sins. To tell people that they can live their whole lives against Hashem, die, and then be absolved of all sins because of some money, you are mistaken in the foundations of Judaism. And unfortunately, Rabotai, there are many scams like this where people say, listen, you want to save your uncle or your father or your mother that's in Gehenom right now, donate a few $100, commit, or a few $1,000 depending on how big your bank account is, and don't worry, we're going to take it out of Gehenom just like Rabbi Meir Balanes took out Elisha ben Avuya out of Gehenom. We're going to do the same thing. This is a scam. So now you hear this scam, and you, at the same time, you hear this tikkunim that a person should do. Wait, so you have to be smart. Just like before you bought a piece of property, before you bought your house, before you bought a building, before you bought a car, before you bought a watch, before you bought a stock, before you bought a Bitcoin, before you bought anything, you did a little bit of research to verify it's legit, to verify that there's something behind it. Same thing with your spiritual investments. In fact, even more so with your spiritual investments. You have to check that if there's a campaign out there that says this big rabbi, whatever rabbi you want to name, as many campaigns say it's after usually one of the biggest rabbis in the world. If you contribute, Rabbi Kanievsky or Rabbi this one or some Admol is going to bless you, then you're going to have kids, you're going to have this, you're going to have that. And you know what, Rabotai, I'll tell you a little secret. Many times, the Admol and the Rav don't even know this campaign exists. Doesn't even know this campaign exists. And sometimes the campaigns are not 100% kosher. They don't even fund the people that they say they're going to fund. They don't feed the poor, and they don't help the homeless. Many times, it's been known, many times, campaigns are fraudulent. As I've told you guys multiple times, story that happened here in our backyard in Florida. They raised $2.2 million in a matter of a few days for a medicine that ended up not being needed because insurance was going to pay for it. The three rabbis, the three stooges that were behind the campaign simply decided to pocket the money. Pocket the money, $2.2 million. Yeah, but what about the medicine? Oh, it's not needed. Okay, well, so give the money back to the people. No, we're going to use it if anybody else needs. Okay, Habibi, yeah. There's a lot of scams. So on one hand, you say, wait, it's good to do tikkunim, to donate for Torah, but there's also a lot of scams. So what should I do? You have to do research. The house that you invested 2, 3, 4 months investigating whether it has the right foundation, whether it has the right neighborhood, whether it has the right this, the right that. Before you bought the house, you did an investigation, you got comps, different reports, you asked friends, you asked referrals, you did all that research. For something for what? For a house that you're going to live in at most 70 years, your whole life. At most. You did research for 2, 3 months. How come you can't do at least a little bit of research on the house you're going to live in for eternity? Oh, I don't have time. Oh, okay, you don't have time. In reality, you don't care. Why? Because in reality, you don't want to give. Why? Because of the kofil that's inside. That doesn't know if it's really real, if it's really needed, if it's really this, if it's really that. That's the problem. That's why Kadosh Baruch Hu says, He wants us He wants us to make sure that we realize he cares about everything, even Netilat Yadayim, for the biggest tzaddik in the world, the Kohen Gadol. He wants us to give him, Natnu Ish, kofil nafsho, to take that kofil out of our neshama, to give it to him. Stop, using excuses not to give. Stop using excuses to not do what you're supposed to be doing. But not be a fool either. Not be a fool either. Furthermore, we see in this parasha that HaKadosh Baruch Hu gives wisdom to those that already have some wisdom. He gave a extraordinary wisdom to Betzalel, godly spirit into Betzalel, but then he says to Lemate Dan, to the tribe of Dan, Ubelev kol chacham lev natati chokhmah, that HaKadosh Baruch Hu endowed the heart of every wise-hearted person with wisdom. Meaning he already had some wisdom in him. I gave him more wisdom. What does it mean he had wisdom? He had Torah in him. He learns Torah. He shows me he likes the Torah. He likes wisdom. I'm going to give him more wisdom. People think that if they read a lot of books, they're going to know a lot of Torah. It doesn't necessarily work that way. Of course, if you don't read, you're not going to know anything. But just because you read a lot doesn't mean you're going to know a lot. There's a lot of people that read a lot and don't know anything. I know one guy says that he read the same tractate in the Gemara more than 30, 40 times. But you ask him questions about that Gemara, if you know it by heart, you know this, he says, I don't remember anything. Every time I read the Gemara, it's like brand new. Why? Because Baruch Hu decided to give him this tikkun. 30 times you read the same tractate of Gemara, doesn't remember anything. Just because you read a lot doesn't mean that Kadosh Baruch Hu is going to say, oh, you know a lot. Now, of course, it's an extraordinary achievement to read the same tractate of Gemara that many times. But the point being is that reading a lot doesn't necessarily always yield the reward that you want. What does the Kadosh Baruch Hu want? He wants your heart. He wants you to show him that you love his wisdom, you love his Torah. When you toil in his Torah, when you break your head for his Torah, when you invest into his Torah, when you do whatever you can to get more Torah in the world, both for yourself and for others, HaKadosh Baruch Hu will give you more wisdom. HaKadosh Baruch Hu will give you more wisdom. Then after that, HaKadosh Baruch Hu talked to us about a very big deal today. What? Shabbat. ויאמר אדוני אל משה לאמור ואתה דבר לבני ישראל לאמור אך את שבתותי תשמעו כי אות היא ביני וביניכם לדורותיכם לדעת כי אני אדוני מקדישכם. Hashem says to Moshe, now you speak to the children of Israel saying, however, you must observe my Shabbats, for it is a sign between me and you for your generations to know that I am Hashem who makes you holy. Gemara Masechet Shabbat says that when a person observe Shabbat, they are testifying that they believe that God is the only God in the world and he's the one that created the world in 6 days and rested on the 7th. But if somebody desecrates Shabbat, they drive to shul on Shabbat, they go and do business on Shabbat, they simply do not observe Shabbat, that person is testifying that they do not believe that God runs the world. They do not believe God created the world, Hashem Yishmo. They're considered as if they are an idol worshiper, an atheist. It's a tragedy and a half. Hence the reason why the Rambam paskins la'alacha, and the same thing with the Shulchan Aruch, and the same thing in the Gemara, and everywhere across the board. Someone that desecrates Shabbat, knowing that it's Shabbat, knowing that Shabbat you're not supposed to drive on Shabbat, knowing that you're not allowed to work on Shabbat. A person that desecrates Shabbat, and he understands what Shabbat is. Perhaps he doesn't know all the laws, doesn't know all the significance, but he understands that Jews are obligated to keep Shabbat, and chooses not to, is considered 100% an idol worshiper. Idol worshiper. No different than the people that are worshiping some guy that died 2,000 years. Idol worshiper. Now today we have a complicated issue. What's the complicated issue? There are some goyim in the world, righteous goyim, sometimes not necessarily so righteous, that are keeping Shabbat, at least according to them, thinking that they're doing good for themselves. This is a mistake. Why? Here we have one of the many sources, two of the many sources are actually in this parasha, where HaKadosh Baruch Hu says to Moshe Rabbeinu, tell Am Yisrael, tell the children of Israel, you must observe my Shabbats, for it is a sign between me and you. What's me and you? Who's me and you? Me and the Christians? Me and the Catholics? Me and the Noahides? Me and who? Me and Am Israel. So then the Chachamim are going to say, no, he doesn't say Israel. He says, me and you. He's talking to mankind. All of mankind can keep Shabbat. Okay, then just read on. Read on, Habibi. Read on where it says in verse number 17. Starts with 16. ושמרו בני ישראל את השבת לעשות את השבת לדורותם ברית עולם ביני ובין בני ישראל. The children of Israel shall observe the Shabbat to make the Shabbat an eternal covenant for their generations between me and the children of Israel. It is a sign forever. That same ot. Meaning the gift of Shabbat was given to Am Yisrael, not to the nations. Gemara Masechet Shabbat says, HaKadosh Baruch Hu says to Moshe Rabbeinu, I have a great gift in my treasure chest. Its name is Shabbat. Tell Am Yisrael I'm giving it to them. You're not giving it to the nations. Non-Jews that observe Shabbat because they're choosing to follow their own law or they're listening to some misguided rabbis that are trying to make people feel like they're Jewish without being Jewish, just because they want you to give them their money, you're making a mistake, you're making a sin, you're not making a mitzvah. Non-Jews should not keep Shabbat. It's a covenant between Am Yisrael and HaKadosh Baruch Hu. You could do whatever you want on Shabbat. You could eat a meal, you could not eat a meal, you could play basketball, not play basketball. You can do whatever you want. But to think that you should and could observe Shabbat the same as a Jew, unless you're in a process of conversion, not allowed to do such a thing. Why? You're creating a new religion. You're creating a new religion. If you want to keep Shabbat, you have to convert to Judaism. You don't want to convert to Judaism, can't keep Shabbat. And of course, this is something that creates tension. Tension because there are many people that are trying to observe parts of the Torah and be righteous, which is good. But if you're going to observe the Torah like it is, not according to your own logic. The reason why the sages throughout all of history always spoke against non-Jews that keep Shabbat is simply because it's not allowed. Only in this generation does people that call themselves rabbis start telling the non-Jews that they should keep Shabbat. Now what about a Jew that doesn't keep Shabbat? The very same place says, Kol ha'oseh melacha b'yom ha'shabbat mot yumat. Anyone who does work on the Shabbat shall be put to death. Mot yumat. Gemara Masechet Sanhedrin says, what is mot yumat? Why is there two deaths? Death upon death. Gemara Masechet Sanhedrin says, death in this world and death in the next world. He dies early, before the age of 60 in this world, as a din karet, sometimes later, because he'll get punished in a different way. He'll have his own children die during his lifetime, lose money, all types of other ways that HaKadosh Baruch Hu implements this din karet. But he has death in this world, and surely death in the next world, meaning that he has no share, or she has no share of the world to come, Hashem Yishmo. What's no share of the world to come means? Means they go to Gehenom forever. Some heretic used to go to yeshiva. Instead, made a bunch of comic books. Said in a Larry King interview that when they asked if he believes in God, he said no. So what do you think happens after you die? He goes, nothing. So you're not scared? He goes, actually, I'm not scared of dying. I'm just scared of nothing forever. Meaning that even the atheist believes that forever and nothing forever is something that's scary. Well, guess what? It's not nothing forever. There is no such thing as nothing forever. When Neshama leaves this body, surely it's not going to be nothing. It's either going to be heaven or it's going to be a different place. And it's going to be forever. So of course people can't fathom that. They can't fathom punishment forever, but it's very much a real thing. For a person that's a atheist or a person that's a mechalel Shabbat, it's a Gehenom forever. Why? Because HaKadosh Baruch Hu says, Vayiten el Moshe kekaloto, ledaber ito, in verse number 18, says that HaKadosh Baruch Hu gave to Moshe kekaloto. Chachamim says, what do you mean kekaloto? He gave the Shabbat to Moshe Rabbeinu like a father gives away his bride. A father gives away his daughter as a bride to somebody. The Shabbat is a Kadosh Baruch Hu's daughter. He gave it to us. You desecrate her, you can bet everything that Father, that Ribono Shel Olam, that Father in heaven that we have, he's not going to just sit there quietly forever. You desecrate his daughter your whole life, mistreat her your whole life, you have a very serious problem. Why? He gave it to you like a bride. Gave it to you like a bride. Now, of course, Rabotai, we're running out of time, but we're going to try to bring this to light, Bezat Hashem. Am Yisrael made a mistake. One mistake. Golden calf. Golden calf. Moshe Rabbeinu goes up to Mount Sinai, learns what HaKadosh Baruch Hu Chavruta, 40 days and 40 nights. Am Yisrael counted or miscounted. When Moshe Rabbeinu told them, I'm going for 40 days and 40 nights, they calculated that the first day that he was traveling up the mountain is already calculated as the first day. That was the mistake. What's the difference? 6 hours. How do we know 6 hours? Vayara'am ki boshesh Moshe. The people saw, in chapter 32, verse 1, the people saw that Moshe had delayed. Delayed in Hebrew is called boshesh. Boshesh is spelled the same way as beshesh. Beshesh is with 6. Chachamim say he delayed by 6 hours. According to their calculation, that was a miscalculation. So what if he delayed 6 hours? What ended up happening is that Rashi says that the people got worried. People got worried. It says in the Pasuk, people got worried. Where is this Moshe? Where is this Moshe? They go up to Aaron HaKohen after they kill Hu. They kill Hu, or her in English, because he doesn't want to build him a golden calf. They go to Aaron. Where is this Moshe that took us out of Egypt? Everybody's full of anxiety. Everybody's full of anxiety. Aaron tries to buy them some time. Go, give me some of your money that you were very hard-pressed to give in the past for the Mishkan. Give me a lot more. All of a sudden, everybody becomes generous. For idolatry, everybody becomes generous. You tell them, we want to build a yeshiva, $18. We want to have an idol-worshipping event, $18,000. Shem Yishmor V'Yatzil. Why? Unfortunately, Yetzirah is very generous. Very generous. So, the people all of a sudden become very generous. They give Aaron HaKohen a bunch of jewels, everything. No questions asked. So he figures, okay, it's going to take a while. A while for this gold to melt. But, as the Midrash says, this boy that had this mateh that belonged to Moshe Rabbeinu with Hashem's name on it, throws that in the fire, and the golden calf rises up from the fire by itself. As it says, the Aaron HaKohen says to Moshe when he comes down, when he asks, why did you do this? It says, the egel came out by himself. I didn't make him. The egel comes out speaking. I am the God that took you out of Egypt. The question is, why do we get this punishment? How come we got this? Why, this is in essence Hashem allowing the Yetzirah to win. The Bet Levi, for anyone that watched our series, Bitachon Be'Hashem series, a couple of years ago, one of the first few shiurim, Rav Shloveitchik, the Bet Levi, says anxiety is a sin. Why? It shows a lack of bitachon in Hashem, lack of trust and faith in Hashem. When a person does not have faith in Hashem, and thereby has anxiety, that's a sin. So what's the punishment for having anxiety? HaKadosh Baruch Hu, measure for measure. You are worried that you won't have enough, HaKadosh Baruch Hu is going to make it that you're not going to have enough. Why? Because if you had bitachon, you know that HaKadosh Baruch Hu is the one that gives you what you need. Why are you worried you're not going to have enough? Why are you worried you're not going to have enough? When a person is worried about, I'm never going to get married, Hashem says, okay, stay lonely. Wait, why don't you give me a wife instead? You don't believe in me, why should I give you a wife? You don't believe in me, why should I give you a wife? The Bet HaLevi says that the anxiety that we have, the punishment for it, the punishment for anxiety is exactly what we're anxious about. Am Yisrael was worried. What are they worried? They're not going to have any middleman. They're not going to have anybody to connect them to a Kadosh Baruch Hu. What are they going to do? Serve an idol? What are they going to do? Kadosh Baruch Hu says, you're going to have an idol then. You're going to have an idol. Why? You were worried. You're worried. What'd you worried? I'm going to take my Moshe Rabbeinu out of the world and not leave you with nothing? You didn't have emunah in HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Your anxiety that you weren't willing to wait a little bit more time, we're talking about a matter of 6 hours, ended up with literally the worst sin in the history of mankind that we're still suffering for till this day. Now, Moshe Rabbeinu comes down. Initially, he figures that, okay, Am Yisrael sinned, but there's still Am Yisrael. Still Am Yisrael. Hashem says, no, I'm going to destroy them. Moshe Rabbeinu pleads with HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Why, HaKadosh Baruch Hu, you're going to do this to your people, to this, you promised Avraham, Yitzchak, Yaakov. Pleads with HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Then he comes down, he sees the people, breaks the 10 commandments, and starts killing people. Hold on a second. Didn't you just plead for Hashem not to kill them? Now you're killing them? Now you broke the 10 commandments that you were in Mount Sinai for 40 days, 40 nights for? Contradicting, no? No. Says the Rebbe Misatmer, Rabbi Yoel Misatmer, one of the great sages in the last 100 years. Says somebody that loved Am Yisrael, a leader, a rabbi, a rebbe, a tzaddik, loves Am Yisrael, has to know, you must rebuke the people. There's a commandment from the Torah. Moshe Rabbeinu rebuked the people, the entire book of Dvarim, Sefer the Deuteronomy. The whole book is full of Moshe Rabbeinu rebuking Am Yisrael. When you speak to Am Yisrael, you see them making mistakes, you rebuke them. Why? So they can fix their ways. But when you talk to Hashem, when you pray to Hashem, when you private, only talk good about Am Yisrael. Don't come to our Kadosh Baruch Hu and tell him, oh, your people have sinned, they're terrible. Chas v'shalom, that you speak against Am Yisrael to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Chas v'shalom. Moshe Rabbeinu, when HaKadosh Baruch Hu himself says, your people have sinned, look what they did. The exact opposite of what they were supposed to do. They're supposed to fulfill what David HaMelech says in Tehillim 34 verse 15. Su mira ve'aseh tov. Run away from evil and do good. First stop sinning, then do mitzvot. What do they do instead? What do they do instead? HaKadosh Baruch Hu says to Moshe Rabbeinu, Saru mehar min haderech. They strayed quickly. Instead of su mira, saru. They saru maher. They strayed, but in the opposite way. Instead of straying away from the sin, they strayed to the sin. Same word that David HaMelech uses. So Moshe Rabbeinu pleads with Hashem. Why are you going to punish them? They're all little kids. They don't know any better. You already took them out of Egypt. What, are you going to kill them now? It's going to be Chilul Hashem. People are going to say you brought them to the desert just to kill them because you can't give them salvation. Doesn't look good for you. He pleads with Hashem. Pleads. But then when he goes to Am Yisrael, breaks the 10 commandments, rebukes them, starts killing people. Whoever's for Hashem is with me. All the Levim took swords in their hands, started killing family members that sinned. Why? When you are private, you're praying to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, you're studying Torah, you're doing it bodedut, you talk only good about Am Yisrael. Never say a bad word about Am Yisrael. Hashem Yishmor. On such a stupid thought, people say things bad about Am Yisrael. But when you talk to Am Yisrael, you have your friends, you have your keilah, you have your community, you see them doing something wrong, you rebuke them. Why? That's the only way they're going to fix themselves. That's what Moshe Rabbeinu did here. We talk to Hashem. Tell Hashem, Give them more time. Please. They're only little babies. Stubborn little kids. Troublemakers, but they're your kids. Talk to the people. Rip them apart if you have to. Why? To save them. Because you love them. That's the mistake people make. They think, oh, you shouldn't rebuke. It's not good to talk bad about Am Yisrael. Chas v'shalom, talking bad about Am Yisrael. You're rebuking for the sake of their lives. Because that's your obligation. But when you pray to Hashem, you pray only good things about Am Yisrael. Only good things. This is one of the most important lessons that a person needs to know. But then what happens to those people that sin? What happens to a person that served an idol? Chamim say, HaKadosh Baruch Hu's wrath came down on them in 3 different ways. There was 3 different groups. 3 different groups. What are these groups? The Gemara in Masechet Yoma, page 66b, says the first group of people knew they're not supposed to serve an idol. They did it anyway. They were warned. They didn't care. Punishment for them? Moshe Rabbeinu killed them with a sword. Or one of the Levim. Yeah, but what? The Levi killed his brother? If his brother served the idol? Yes. Why? He knew he's not allowed to drive on Shabbat. He drove anyway. Death penalty by the sword. Horrible death. Horrible. What about if nobody warned him? He served the idol, but nobody warned him. Nobody told him he's not allowed to drive on Shabbat. Nobody told him he's not allowed to invite Christian missionaries to a shul or attend an event like that. Nobody told him. HaKadosh Baruch Hu killed him with a plague. That's what happened in the Parasha. All those people that served the idol. Yeah, but nobody told me. It was your obligation to learn. Not everybody. Everybody else was obligated to rebuke you. But that does not absolve you from your sins. Just because they're obligated to rebuke you, they're obligated to teach you, they're obligated to tell you the truth, does not mean that you're allowed to do whatever you want. So yeah, because they didn't rebuke you, I can't use them to kill you. Can't use them to kill you because they didn't do anything. They're in trouble also. But you're still in trouble. Why? You may sin, served an idol, drove on Shabbat. What about the people that no one knew? Did you sin? I don't know, I didn't see him. He sinned? I don't know, I didn't see him. Yeah, but a lot of people were sinning. I don't know. Moshe Rabbeinu took the dust of the golden calf, put it in a little bit of water, just like the sotah, wayward woman, where it was possibility that she cheated on her husband. Why? Because she put herself in a suspected place. She was alone with some guy that's not her husband. Yeah, but did she sin? We don't know. What do you do with a woman like that? After you warn her, what do? Take it to the Kohen Gadol. He gives her the mayim marim, the special water. She drinks. If she sinned, HaKadosh Baruch Hu surely knows. If she drinks and she sinned, she blows up and dies on the spot. On the spot. Big Kiddush Hashem. Big Kiddush Hashem, that a little cup of water makes the person blow up like a balloon. Boom. Dies on the spot. And it's good she dies. Why? Shows that HaKadosh Baruch Hu is watching everything. You can't make a joke of everything. On the other hand, if she didn't do it, she drinks the water, nothing happens, she doesn't die. But even more so, she gets a blessing from the Kohen Gadol that if she had ugly kids, the kids will be beautiful. If she had stupid kids, the kids will be really smart. All the blessings you can possibly, she didn't have kids, she's not going to have kids. All the blessings you could possibly imagine get fulfilled on the spot. Why? Because you didn't. So yeah, but I still got embarrassed. Oh, you got embarrassed because you still did something wrong by being in a wrong place. You weren't supposed to be alone with some guy that's not your husband. So for that, you deserve the embarrassment, but you don't deserve to die. Instead, you'll get a blessing for it, to make up for it. But nonetheless, what about those people with the golden calf? Moshe Rabbeinu gave them a little bit of dust of the golden calf and some water. Drink. Why? Because you acted like a wayward woman. You hid. No one knows who, what, when, how. HaKadosh Baruch Hu knows. And he knows if you cheated on him, everybody needs to know. And anyone that served the idol in private drank that water and died. What do we learn from here? What do we learn from here? First and foremost, if you sin against Hashem openly, the punishment's going to come. The punishment's going to come. On the other hand, on the other extreme, you sin in hiding. You sin in hiding, not in the open. You sin in hiding. Punishment's going to come. Kadosh Baruch Hu knows everything. There is no hiding from him. But what about the person that claims ignorance? Oh, I didn't know. Nobody told me. Oh, nobody told you, Papi? Nobody told you? Okay. How come you didn't tell yourself? Oh, I was busy. What were you busy with? I was learning how to invest in stocks. How much time did you invest learning about investing in stocks? Oh, about 2 hours a day. Okay, so how come you couldn't invest 2 hours a day learning about eternity? How come you couldn't invest 2 hours a day learning about the truth of what's the purpose of life? How come you couldn't invest 2 hours a day in who created you? How come? How come you couldn't invest 2 hours a day just to figure out something that takes 2 seconds to figure out? How come? Just like you invested the time in all the other things, to go chase money, to go chase people, to go chase this, to go chase that. How come you didn't go chase the truth? For that, a person gets punished. Meaning, even if he didn't know, it's his responsibility to know. As the Mishnah in Avot says, Shgagat Talmud Ola Zadon. A person that makes a sin, accidental sin, he doesn't know, but it's because he doesn't study. That sin that's accidental is counted as a purposeful sin. As a purposeful sin. Why? Because you didn't study what the truth is on purpose. If you made the sin on purpose, that's already a decree. If you made the sin private, that's already a decree. But if you made the sin because you're ignorant, but in reality you're only ignorant because you chose not to learn. You spent your time watching the Super Bowl and basketball. You spent your time listening to heretics that tell you that everything is good, you don't need to do anything. God needs you. You spend your time doing those other things. You didn't double check these anomalies that are foreign to all of Am Yisrael and its Torah for the last 3,000 years. You didn't verify. What do you expect? To be rewarded? There's no reward. There's only punishment for that. But if a person listens to what HaKadosh Baruch Hu says in the beginning of the parasha, takes out that kofil from within him, takes out that kofir from within her. Stop creating new laws. Stop rejecting old laws. Kadosh Baruch Hu says, be modest, be modest. Kadosh Baruch Hu says, cover your head if you're a married woman, cover your head with a mitpacha. Don't start making your kisui rosh into a new fashion trend. 3 feet long wigs and all types of things that everybody with a brain in their head knows it's forbidden. Everybody with a little bit of Yirat Shamayim knows that it's not allowed to wear such things. Everyone with a little bit, 1 ounce of Yirat Shamayim, 1 ounce of fear of heaven knows that the skirts being short is forbidden. Everyone knows that there's no such thing as modesty without sleeves. There's no such thing as modesty with short skirts and pants and so on. There's no such thing as such things. There's no such thing. No woman that walks around like one of these filthy movie stars thinks that she's modest, including that movie star. She's not thinking, you ask her, are you modest? She's going to laugh at you. No, exactly the opposite, on purpose. Oh, so you're looking for people to look at you. Yeah, exactly. Why? Because I wanted to do, make sins. That's their whole plan. May Hashem have mercy on a woman that causes men to make sins. Hashem Yishmor v'yatzil, because you don't understand. You make him make sins, you also inherit the sins. Don't say no one warned you, because it's not going to work. First and foremost, HaKadosh Baruch Hu put a special neshama in each and every single one of us, that we have the ability to know the entire Torah, if we choose to learn it. And blaming your local rabbi, blaming the heretics, blaming public school, blaming anything, it's not going to work. Why? If you really cared, you'd find a way to know. And you only didn't know because you chose to be blind. You chose to be deaf. Unfortunately, sometimes people that choose to be deaf are surrounded by people that also have chosen to be deaf for generations. Sometimes those people are religious, but they choose to be deaf. Sometimes those people are religious, but they choose to be blind. But their lackings does not allow any one of us to lack too. Their desecration does not allow us to desecrate. Just because this guy killed, this does not allow you to kill. The ignorance of the law does not justify the sin. Not the law of the land, and not the law of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, needless to say. And a person needs to understand that HaKadosh Baruch Hu is the one and only God. And if he is strict to the point of giving a death penalty over not washing their hands and feet, the Kohen Gadol not washing his hands and feet can get a death penalty. If he's that strict with them, needless to say, he's going to be strict with someone that doesn't serve him the right way. So let's do all of ourselves a favor, take HaKadosh Baruch Hu more seriously, and for that, we inherit endless amount of blessings, both in this world and the next. Blessings that, Be'ezrat Hashem, we'll be able to see with our own eyes during our lives, from our kids, from our marriage, from our businesses, from our all of our endeavors, from our Torah learning. We get blessings from our Torah learning, where you learn something and you understand it. You learn something and you remember it. Somebody asks you a question, you have an answer. You have a Shulchan Shabbat, you have something to say. And you're not resorting to the local news as the topic of conversation on Shabbat. That's a blessing, Rabotai, to know Torah. It's a blessing of all blessings. If we go in HaKadosh Baruch Hu's way, and we take him seriously, and we remember ourselves. Of course, we don't want to be the idol worshippers. Of course, we don't want to be the ones that sin privately. We don't want to be the ones that sin aggressively against Hashem. No, we don't want to be that. But also we need to know that even if we're on the good side, that does not give us a free ride. We can do whatever we want. We can't be blind when we choose to be blind and deaf when we choose to be deaf. Because if HaKadosh Baruch Hu is strict with the Kohen Gadol over Netilat Yadayim, needless to say, we have to be strict on ourselves. Because HaKadosh Baruch Hu is not going to just give anybody a free ride. So we have to do whatever we can to keep doing more. Okay, but I can't do it now. Okay, you can't do it now. Try it again tomorrow. Yeah, but I can't do it tomorrow either. Okay, try it again the next day. Never accept failure. Always strive for more. Okay, you failed today, you failed tomorrow, you failed for 3 months, 3 years. Keep trying. Never accept that failure. Just like you wouldn't accept failure in other aspects of your life, never accept failure in your servitude of Hashem. Keep pushing for more, and Be'ezrat Hashem, HaKadosh Baruch Hu will give you the strength to succeed more. Skuli mitzvot rabot, Baruch Adonai Le'olam, Amen ve'Amen.
אני מברך את הרבנים, רגע. אני מברך את הרבנים, הרב ירון ראובן, הרב אפרים כחלון, ראשי ארגון בעזרת השם, שהלכו בפי עליון, שעלו מעלה, יהיה להם ברכה והצלחה, הקדוש ברוך הוא ימלא בישועות ליבם לטובה ולברכה, שבכל מה שיפנו ישכילו ויצליחו, יזכו לעשות כאלה וכאלה, הרדיעו תורה לאדירה, אמן ואמן.
בעזרת השם רשת בכל הארץ. הוא היהודי הזה, הוא היה מיליונר, סגר את כל הביזנס, אמר אני משקיע פה בעולמה של תורה.
איפה הוא גר?
בפלורידה.
פלורידה, איפה זה פלורידה? באמריקה.
מיאמי. כן, ליד. אנחנו שם עכשיו הולכים להקים קהילה ספרדית.
חזק אותו בשמי.
קהילה ספרדית גדולה.
תעביר לו מה שבירכתי אותו.
כן, קהילה ספרדית גדולה.
כן.